Greetings, everyone. I'm Mar, and once again, this is my opinion. As you can obviously tell from the title, it is another episode of First Impressions. And boy, this one's gonna be a doozy because, as you can see, I have finally, after over 3 years of dreading it, sat down and watched the remake of Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters Answer the Call. Who are you gonna call? Someone else. That cameo line sums up my thoughts perfectly about this film because this film was a dud. There was a couple things in this film I liked, got a couple chuckles out of me, but as a whole, this was one of those remakes that can be summed up as, hey, can I copy your homework? Sure, just change enough so the teacher doesn't notice. Copy, paste. The major beats are all the same. The minor stuff is different. Nothing much original. And there. You could say that a lot of the better remakes, a lot of the beats are the same, or some of them are different or in different order, but there's enough different about them that they exist for a reason. Like the Fly remake, the Thing remake, and even the Blob remake. Similar beats, similar plot at the core, but different. This one, this one seems to only exist just to change the genders of our leads. And other than that, the rest of it just felt like a watered down, subpar version of an 80s classic. And it cost 144 million dollars, and I'm looking to see what its total gross was. It looks like its total gross was 229 million dollars. So, going by Hollywood bookkeeping, it would be a flop because it would have to make a little over 300 million dollars in order to break even. So, wah, wah, wah. And I have to say, deservedly, it's so. For the people that like this film, allow me to play you a sad song on the world's smallest violin. It's so small that it can't even be heard by humans. Now, I could say thankfully that I did not pay a cent to watch this film, and before anybody accuses me, no, I did not torrent the film. I got it free via one of those streaming digital copy apps. It was a weird thing. When I joined two of my accounts together, it gave me a couple movies for free, and this was one of them. When I saw that, I'm like, oh, I know what I'm going to be reviewing down the road. Now, the movie is directed by Paul Feig, or I believe I'm pronouncing his name right. It's Feig. He's also the director of Spy, The Heat, a film I still need to watch, and apparently also Bridesmaids, which explains why Melissa McCarthy is in here. And I'm really mixed on Melissa McCarthy. I mean, I liked her in Mike and Molly. I didn't think she was too bad in that puppet film from last year. I didn't mind her in the first couple films I saw her in, but I could kind of see with this film why a lot of people are not the biggest fans of her. Because in this one, her shtick does seem old. I do have to still see that drama movie she did, but after that, before I hear people think it's like Adam Sandler, she should probably do more drama than stop doing comedy after comedy. She was probably my least favorite of the four, I would say, but then there's Leslie Jones, which how her character was written. She got a couple chuckles out of me from her delivery and her expressions, but there's that bad joke from the trailer and a couple other things like she's not as memorable as her counterpart, which it's obvious each of the four has a counterpart from the original. Leslie's is Winston, and I'm not just saying that because she is the black character out of the group. I'm saying that because of the fact that she's the fourth member of the group and she brought in later and she has no connection to the other three other than the fact that she gets hired on last. Kate McKinnon's character Jillian is the Spangler character, and I have to say, of the four, she's probably one of the only few I liked. Her and Kristen Wiig's character Erin are the only ones I really liked. But even then, it wasn't as much of a connection as the original four. It's just the stuff about their backstory. I'm like, I like him a bit. Uh, Kristen is supposed to be it's hard to tell which one she's supposed to be. I'd say she's mainly the Venkman because she's a skeptic when they come in. But there's also a little bit of a ditzy quality about her, which is like, that's kind of a little bit of Ray, but Ray's not that ditzy. Maybe in the cartoon, I think they played it up a bit more, but it's been ages since I've seen it. And of course, Abby seems more like she'd be the Ray one. The plot of the film, in a nutshell, is essentially the same. Starts with the trio. They're trying to prove that ghosts exist. They get kicked out of their cushy little college office. In this case, it's a double because Erin, Kristen Wiig's character, works at a different college where she's trying to be serious. She finds out that Abby has published the ghost book that they co-wrote together without informing her. She goes to talk to her about it because she thinks that could get her in hot water with her boss, Harold, who's played by Charles Dance. His performance is okay, but there's nothing to it. He was used better in Godzilla King of the Monsters than he was here. He's used better as a dead body in the first episode of Season 5 of Game of Thrones than he is here. It's just a nothing role. Anyway, we get the whole ghost lady, but it's different. It's a more malevolent ghost than it was in the original. We get them creating their technology. They test it out. They get their first big gig. Instead of a hotel, it's at a metal concert, which I did like. That got a couple chuckles out of me. They become a smashing success. And then in the end, they have to stop a big baddie ghost from destroying the city. Instead of Stay Puft, it's a ghost that's to take off the logo, which leads to the scene that is probably the biggest metaphor for this film when it comes to the series, and that is they hit the ghost below the belt with the cross streams. If there is a better metaphor for what this film is to the series, I can't think of it, because that's what this film is. The comedy, there was a couple moments that got chuckles out of me, but they were light chuckles, but most of the humor or attempt at humor fell flat. And for a comedy, there's nothing worse than jokes that are not funny. I mean, there are jokes that you could find funny but not fully understand the joke, like with certain satires. Like with Monty Python and the Holy Grail, I thought a lot of the jokes were funny, but I didn't fully understand what they were making fun of until later. Like The Black Knight, that's making fun of codes of chivalry. You never fight an unarmed opponent, and literally in that scene the opponent is unarmed. But a lot of these jokes, and if some of these were ad-libbed, they were not that funny ad-libs. Like a lot of the funny moments from the original were ad-libs, but they were actually funny. And another thing I hate is what they do with Chris Hemsworth. Say what you want about how he is in the later films as Thor, mainly how the comedy thing, and some people say he's more playing himself with a little bit of Thor, which I respectfully disagree with. There, he at least is used better. Here, other than the ending where he gets possessed, spoiler alert, he just seemed wasted. At least there, it seems like he's having a little bit of fun, even though some of the lines they scripted him to say were a bit awkward. But he's essentially just eye candy, and he is a real major ditz. For him, they seems like they took Louis, Janine from the first film, combined them, and lost all the charm and character that both of them had. And watching him, I couldn't help but think, so this, when there is a ditzy female character that's just there for sex appeal, now I kind of get why certain females would have to complain about that type of archetype. But, to that end, that's no excuse for just flipping it around and doing that when the rest of the film kind of only exists just to reverse the genders. And it doesn't work. I mean, this film had some potential to work if it was actually funny. But even then, if the rest of the film worked, if all the jokes went good, they had some better ideas to replace some of the stupid ones, if they still had Chris Hemsworth's character in here, that'd be the big elephant in the room. I mean, there's a couple little funny moments with him, but they're like light chuckle moments. There's nothing belly laugh in this film. I can tell you probably the best scene in the movie is the introductory scene, other than one line, and I'm like, okay, that line is put in here just to show how hip the people are. That scene was good. If you want a summation, though, of how bad the humor in this film is, it's this one moment where they go, "Who are you going to call?" And then you hear in the back a commercial for an in-universe show go, "Ghost Jumpers!" Oh, when I heard that, I'm like, oh. And it's because of stuff like that that I knew about 5 minutes after the movie started, this is going to be a movie I'm not going to like. Now, I've said that there were some interesting ideas in this film, and I will say the ones I liked. I did like that we actually get to see Erin as she is creating the technology, the proton packs, or create all the other gadgets for the Ghostbusters. That was nice. I did like the fact that instead of going the whole God route, it's another guy using the research that Abby and Erin originally created. Oh, and excuse me, I meant Julian creating the technology. Sorry, I know someone's going to correct me on that. Abby and Erin using their research but tweaking it in order to summon ghosts into our dimension using technology. That was an interesting idea. And of course, having it basically erupt with a bomb and all that. Um, how they got the idea for their logo is okay. It's not. It's an okay idea. I wouldn't say it's interesting. Probably my favorite idea that they had in the film was the fact that the government is making them out to be wackos, but on the same time, at the end, decides to fund them to help them deal with any other ghost instances like this, and that's how they get into a bigger place, which connects to the one running gag about Chinese food being late, which that's one of the moments that got a chuckle out of me because it's an hour late when they're living right above the restaurant. That is vindictive late. And then, of course, during one of their technology testing things, they blow up his bike and he comes out and he just looks at them. That got a light chuckle out of me. Now, to connect back to the whole thing about the reversing of the genders and Hemsworth's character, this film was written by two people. One of them is Paul and the other one is Katie DePaul. It's written by two people and it came out like this? There's no reason for this. Can the studio get the money back from those two that it paid them to write this abomination of a script? If so, I hope they did. I hope it was commencement on the film making a profit and they got squat. The special effects in the opening scene, it looks fine. It looks a little cartoony in the final scenes. Even Slimer looks a bit weird, even though it was nice to see Slimer. But there's just something weird. Maybe they were trying to go with a weird stylistic approach to it, but it just felt jarring for me. I mean, like in the original film, it's a horror comedy, but you really felt the horror aspect more in the original one, whereas this one you feel the failed comedy and you don't really feel a sense of horror even with the big baddie. And that's another problem, is that it feels more like a parody reinterpretation of the Ghostbusters than it does a remake or something set in the other universe. That marketing made it confusing whether it's supposed to be a full-on remake or a sequel with the same name. But watching the film, it's a remake. And now we go to another thing, and that's the cameo of the original Ghostbusters. Bill Murray had the longest cameo where he plays a known paranormal skeptic, which, given Venkman in the original film and the fact that Murray has that dry wit about him, I'd say that's a perfect cameo for him. The only thing that kind of killed it was the fact that they had him get killed by a ghost. But I'd say if you're going to have a skeptic, having him get killed by one of the ghosts is probably what's going to happen. Dan Aykroyd had the next cameo near the end where he plays a cab driver with an accent. His was it was nice to see, not really much to say about it other than he tells the character he talks with that he doesn't go to Chinatown and he ain't afraid of no ghosts. Ha ha ha. I just hate to think what Harold Ramis's cameo would have been if he had been alive. Rick Moranis, thankfully, is mostly retired, so I'm glad he didn't do a cameo in here. Ernie Hudson was probably the only cameo of the three I could say I liked, and that's because it's at the very end, and it's the most fitting, because he is the uncle of Leslie Jones's character, and he's the one that provided the hearse that made Ecto-1 in this film. I thought that was a nice little cameo for him. And it's like, that's how you do a cameo right. But if there's another metaphor in this film that sums up how much this film is a failure, it's the remix they did of the Ghostbusters theme that was half-assed and poorly done, and that summarizes this film. Half-assed, poorly done. I mean, the high production values are there, but none of the pieces fit together to make a great final product. So, if you've been like me and James Rolfe, where you've been refusing to watch this, I will say after experiencing this pain, which I did share with Gabe, because he was on a Facebook Messenger with me while I was watching this, and every now and then I'd flip the phone to show him something stupid that was happening on screen. If you haven't seen this film, I recommend not watching this unless you just want to see how bad it is and then let the hate flow through you. Ghostbusters Answer the Call, a number that should never have been dialed, and a call that you should ignore and block.